The kitchen clock ticked louder than it should have. 11:43. I sat at the head of the table, untouched dinner in front of me, phone face down, heart pounding like it knew something before my brain did. Then the door opened. Natalie stepped in with the kind of smile people wear when they've been somewhere they shouldn't. Her heels dangled from her fingers, her lipstick was smudged, but not like from wine or laughter. Her blouse was half unbuttoned. And there, glowing red against her pale neck, was a mark no scarf could cover. I stood up so fast the chair scraped backward. "Where have you been?" She paused at the doorway, blinked once, then said like it was nothing, "Out with the girls. Relaxing." I walked toward her, every step heavier than the last. "With which girls, Natalie?" None of them picked up. I called Carla, Qley, even Meredith. You want to guess what they said? She let out a little chuckle and raised an eyebrow. "You're calling my friends now? Since when did you turn into a watchdog?" I stopped a foot from her. The scent hit me, cologne, rich and sharp, nothing like mine. I swallowed hard. "I'm not a watchdog. I'm your husband. Or did you forget?" She smiled. "Hard to forget with all this drama greeting me at the door. You smell like another man." My voice cracked. "And you're marked. Right there." I pointed at her collarbone, my hand actually trembling. She glanced down casually, then shrugged. Maybe someone hugged me goodbye. Maybe it was a crowded place. "Are you really doing this right now? You don't even have a decent lie lined up, do you?" I said, stepping back. "You're not even trying. You want honesty?" She narrowed her eyes and crossed her arms. "Fine. I needed space. A night out. Something that didn't revolve around your law firm stories and Sunday grocery lists." I stared at her. "So you cheated?" "I didn't say that," she shot back. "You didn't have to." Her expression changed just slightly. Something flickered behind her eyes. Fear? Shame? No, just calculation. Then came the worst part. Her smirk. "David, you build cases for a living. Where's your proof?" "I don't need proof. I can feel it. In my gut. In the way you walk in like I'm just part of the furniture." She walked past me, brushing my shoulder, cold as ice. "Then go ahead. Convict me in your head. Slam the gavel. You'll still be sleeping alone tonight." She disappeared into the bedroom. The door clicked shut. Not slammed. Not rushed. Just done. And I stood there, barefoot on the cold tile, fists clenched, throat dry, wondering if the life we built was already over. Only problem was, I had no hard evidence. Just a neck mark, a scent, and a shattered instinct that wouldn't stop screaming. The next morning, I got to my office before sunrise. My assistant hadn't arrived yet. The building lights were low, the glass doors still fogged with early January air. I dropped my briefcase onto the chair, pulled out my phone, and opened my contacts. I scrolled past colleagues, clients, old law school classmates, until I found him. Al Rutherford. 10 years ago, he was security chief for a merger case I'd worked on. Smart, silent type, ex-military with a soft spot for honesty. We kept in touch occasionally. Once, he tracked down a mole in a Fortune 500 firm using nothing but paper trails and a coffee receipt. I hit call. "David." His voice was just as gravelly as I remembered. "I need eyes on someone," I said, skipping pleasantries. "My wife." There was a pause, but not a long one. "I'll be discreet," he said simply. "Send me her schedule. Names. Usual spots. I'll handle the rest." 2 weeks passed. 2 weeks of pretending everything at home was normal. Making coffee in silence, sharing a bathroom, brushing past each other like we were strangers in a hotel. Natalie stopped offering excuses. I stopped asking. We lived in the same house, breathing the same air, pretending it wasn't poisoned. And every day, I waited. Until finally, I'll texted, "Need to talk. In person." We met at a diner a few blocks from my office. One of those places where the booths are cracked and the coffee tastes like melted batteries. He was already seated when I got there. Same worn leather jacket, same poker face. "Well?" I asked, sliding in across from him. I'll set a manila folder on the table. No label. Just a few photos inside. Natalie goes to work. Comes home. Occasionally grabs dinner with the same 3 friends. Qley, Meredith, Carla. I tailed her to one of those. All normal. What about weekends? Saturday she got a massage. Paid in cash. Nothing weird. Sunday yoga. I followed her both days. She didn't go anywhere she wasn't supposed to. My stomach tightened. Nothing at all. He shook his head slowly. I checked her phone records. She uses a messaging app with encrypted chats. Might be work-related, might not. But there's no unknown number. No late-night meetups. No hotel visits. No guy showing up. I'm not seeing it. I stared at him, jaw clenched. So she's clean? Al took a sip of his coffee and looked me straight in the eye. I didn't say that. I said there's no evidence. I sank back against the booth. The weight in my chest didn't lift, it got heavier. So either I'm crazy, or she's smarter than both of us. She's being careful, he said. That's for sure. And she's not rattled. That worries me more than anything else. What do you mean? Al leaned in. If she was having an affair, she'd slip up. Everyone does. But she's steady, composed. No changes to her routine. It's like she already knew someone might be watching. I looked out the grimy window. Downtown traffic rolled by like the world hadn't shattered under my feet. I smell cologne on her, Al. I saw the mark. I felt it. And now, I feel like I'm losing my mind. He nodded slowly. The gut rarely lies. But without something solid, I can't confirm a thing. He slid the folder toward me. Keep it. If anything changes, I'll call. I didn't touch it. I just sat there, hands in my lap, staring at the manila envelope like it was empty proof of my own failure. When I returned to the firm later that morning, I stood in front of the wide glass window of my office, the one overlooking the river, the courthouse, the commuter trains pulling in and out of the station. This was the part no one warned you about in law school, when truth refused to play by the rules of evidence. I'd built a career on logic, on things that could be proven. Statements, timelines, files, facts. But now, all I had was instinct. A gut wound that wouldn't stop bleeding. And I knew something was wrong. But when you're the only one who believes it, even your own doubt starts looking like betrayal. The cake sat untouched. A small crowd had gathered in our home. Our closest friends, a few of my law firm partners, Natalie's circle from her clinic. Laughter echoed through the rooms, wine glasses clinked, and the table was loaded with catered food Natalie insisted on organizing. She was the perfect host, smiling, floating between guests, occasionally brushing my arm like we were still in sync. But I felt like I was watching it all from underwater. Even as I forced a smile, cracked jokes, and accepted handshakes, my mind kept returning to that empty manila folder Al had given me. No pictures, no names, no proof. Just the echo of a truth I still couldn't let go of. And then Natalie stood. Everyone, she called out sweetly, holding her glass. Her other hand rested on her stomach. Can I have your attention? Voices quieted. Chairs shifted. I froze with my fork midair. She looked at me, eyes bright, glowing almost unnaturally. I didn't get you a traditional gift this year, David. But I hope this one changes everything. A pause. Then she smiled. I'm pregnant. The room gasped. Meredith covered her mouth. Qley squealed. Someone clapped. I stared at her. The glass in my hand trembled. And that was the moment. I stood up slowly, lifted my glass with a tight grip. To Natalie, I said, my voice ringing out clearly over the stunned silence. To her and her lover. Gasps again, sharper this time. Several chairs scraped back. Someone whispered my name. I'm not the father, I added louder. But congratulations to whoever is. Natalie's face didn't crack, not right away. She blinked once, twice. Then her lip trembled. What? What are you saying? Her voice was so soft it almost got lost in the tension. I'm saying you should be honest for once, I said, not breaking eye contact. You're carrying someone else's child. And you decided to wrap it up in a birthday bow like it was a gift. David, what the hell? That was Marcus, my college friend, stepping forward. That's your wife. She's not my anything, I said, my voice low but sure. Natalie let out a shaky breath and suddenly covered her face. Why are you doing this? She choked. Why would you humiliate me in front of everyone? No, I said flatly. You did that. The second you walked through our door 2 weeks ago smelling like a stranger. She sobbed. Loud, uncontrolled. And now people weren't sure who to believe. Qley stepped between us. What is wrong with you? She snapped. She's pregnant and glowing and happy. And you're ruining it with some jealous tantrum? I looked around. Half the room avoided my eyes. The other half glared at me. Let them believe what they want, I muttered. Natalie sat down, shaking, her friends rushing to console her. I felt something cold settle over me. Not rage, not even heartbreak. Just silence. I picked up my coat, grabbed my car keys from the dish by the door, and walked out. No one stopped me. I checked into a serviced apartment 2 miles from home. It wasn't much, gray walls, dim lighting, kitchen the size of a closet. But the silence was clean, the kind that didn't echo with betrayal. I dropped my bag by the door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. There was no turning back now. She made her move. I made mine. And somewhere between that toast and her tears, I realized this was no longer about love. This was war. The next morning, the firm was too quiet. I walked into the building like I always did, press suit, coffee in hand, case briefs tucked under my arm, but people glanced at me differently. Longer stares, whispered nods. I could feel the weight of last night spreading faster than any courtroomer. My office door hadn't even clicked shut before Melissa, our receptionist, peeked her head in. "There's someone asking for you." She wouldn't wait. I sighed. "Who?" She said her name's Qley. I closed my eyes, counted to 3. Let her in. Moments later, Qley exploded through the door like a summer storm in heels. She wore a fitted trench coat over business clothes, but her eyes were wild, like she hadn't slept. "You unbelievable, selfish, coward," she hissed, not bothering to lower her voice. I didn't stand up. I stayed behind my desk, calm, tired. "Morning, Qley." "You humiliated her," she spat. "You announced something disgusting in front of friends, co-workers, like some smug detective. And now she's in bed, crying like a child. You want to explain that to me?" I stood slowly, buttoned my jacket. "Close the door if you're going to yell." "No," she snapped. "Let your perfect little staff hear it. Let them see who you are." She turned to the hallway, voice raised. "Everyone, David Hallberg isn't who you think he is. He's a father who abandoned his wife because he got bored." People froze in the hallway. My paralegal dropped her pen. "Are you done?" I asked. "No," she said, storming forward. "Because Natalie loved you. Still does. She glows, she shares joy, and all you can do is slap it out of her hands. What the hell is wrong with you? You want to know?" I stepped around the desk. "Let's talk then." Her eyes narrowed. "She came home marked up?" I said quietly. "Covered in another man's scent." She lied. I asked her straight to her face, and she laughed it off. No guilt. No stutter. She told me what happened. Qley shouted. "It was nothing. It was a friend's party, and someone got a little too close." "Don't." I cut in. "Don't patch her story for her. She's smart enough to tell her own lies." Her hand twitched like she was thinking about slapping me. Instead, she reached for the glass of water on my desk and threw it in my face. The room went silent. Water dripped from my chin. My tie clung to my shirt. I didn't move. "I didn't ask you to believe me," I said calmly. "I said the child's not mine. Because it isn't. And deep down, you know it too." She stared at me, breathing hard. Her voice wavered. "You're just scared." "No," I said, pulling a napkin from the drawer. "I'm clear. For the first time in weeks." She looked like she wanted to say something else, maybe scream, maybe apologize, but instead, she turned and stormed out. Her heels clicked furiously down the hall as heads turned and conversations died. I wiped the water from my face, slowly, and glanced toward the door. Half the firm had seen it. They didn't pretend not to. But no one said a word. I stood there in silence, soaked to the bone, and realized something odd. I didn't feel broken. I felt ready. Because if Natalie thought I'd back down, if she thought this game could be won with pity and public pressure, she didn't know me at all. The first post went up 2 days after Qley's visit. A glowing sonogram picture, captioned, "The tiniest heartbeat can shake your whole world. 2 hearts. #grateful mama. #first trimester joy. #unshakable faith." The likes piled up fast. Then came the story posts. Natalie in soft lighting, hands on her stomach, sipping ginger tea, surrounded by candles and supportive comments from friends. "You're glowing. He doesn't deserve you. Doing it alone just proves how strong you are." Every time I opened my phone, another tag notification appeared at Natalie Hallberg, at Mother Warrior, at Survivor Mama, each one a little knife. Each one rewriting the story, one filtered photo at a time. In every shot, she was peaceful, serene, portrayed like the patron saint of modern motherhood, rising above a bitter, emotionally distant husband who couldn't handle the miracle of new life. What none of them saw, what no one asked, was what came before those soft-lit smiles. No one wanted to hear about cologne, or the smirk, or the silence after I asked her to tell me the truth. The sympathy rolled in anyway, and with it came distance. Carla stopped answering texts. Our couple's group chat, dead quiet. Even Melissa, my assistant, now spoke to me with a kind of cautious distance, like I might explode or dissolve at any moment. The worst was when one of Natalie's old co-workers cornered me at a cafe downtown and said, "You know she still loves you, right?" before walking away without waiting for an answer. I was alone, until the knock on my door Thursday night. I opened it to find Marcus standing there, hoodie on, six-pack of beer dangling from one hand, bag of chips in the other. "Didn't text. Didn't call," he said. "Didn't feel like asking." He stepped inside without waiting. Marcus and I had shared a dorm in undergrad. Law school. Bar prep. The guy once broke up with a girl because she insulted my brief during a mock trial. Loyalty ran deep with him. And tonight, I needed it more than I wanted to admit. We cracked open a beer in silence. 10 minutes passed before he spoke again. "She's putting on a show," he said, staring at the muted TV. "I saw the post. And the hashtags. All of them." I didn't respond. "She's good at it," he added. "Always was. I remember how she used to run that fundraiser at the university like it was a Broadway act." "You think I'm wrong?" I asked, voice flat. He looked over. "Does it matter?" "It matters to everyone else." "I'm not everyone else." He leaned forward, elbows on his knees. "I don't know if she cheated, David. But I know you. You don't blow up your own life for fun. You don't throw wine glasses or make speeches in front of guests unless something's eating you alive. So if your gut says something's off, then that's enough for me." I exhaled slowly. The air in the room felt a little less thick. "I lost everyone else. They weren't yours to begin with if they bailed this fast." He raised his beer. "To doubt. And to stubborn idiots like you who keep chasing the truth even when no one claps." We drank. That night, as he fell asleep half sitting on the couch with his hoodie pulled over his eyes, I sat near the window and watched the city breathe. The apartment felt less like exile and more like a foxhole. And that quiet, flickering loyalty from one old friend, it was enough to make me stand a little straighter the next morning. The war wasn't over. Not even close. It was raining the night she showed up. Not a light drizzle, either. One of those cold, steady Virginia storms that soaks you through just walking across the street. The kind that makes the world feel heavier. I just finished clearing out some paperwork when the knock came. 3 slow, deliberate taps. I didn't move at first. Just stared at the door. When I opened it, there she stood. Natalie. Hair damp. Raincoat clinging to her frame. No makeup, no filters. Just her, plain and real, like she'd peeled back some part of the performance. "Can we talk?" she asked. Calm. Soft. Not defeated, controlled. I stepped aside without a word. She walked in like she belonged. No hesitation. Took the same seat she always used at the kitchen table, the one with the loose leg she never let me fix. Her hands folded on the surface like she was waiting for a chess match to begin. I sat across from her. The rain tapped at the window behind us, steady as a metronome. She spoke first. "I want you to come home." I blinked slowly. "That's what you came here to say?" "I miss you," she said, eyes steady. "I miss our life. The quiet. Your cooking. The way you always double-check the door lock before bed." I leaned back slightly. "You don't miss me. You miss control." She flinched, but only barely. "I'm not the villain, David," she said, almost tenderly. "Things got messy, but we're still us. We can fix it." "No," I said. She tilted her head. "No?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with her. "Take off the mask, Natalie. I'm filing for divorce." "There." I said it. And for a full 5 seconds, she didn't move. Didn't blink. Then she exhaled through her nose and stood up slowly. Not a tear. Not a plea. Just a quiet nod, like we were wrapping up a casual meeting. She reached for her coat. "I thought you might say that." "That's all you have to say?" Her voice was unreadable. "You've made your mind up. What would it change?" "You're not surprised?" "No," she said. "I'm not." She walked toward the door. I didn't stop her. But right before she opened it, she turned back. "You always thought you could see through people, David. But you never looked deep enough." And then she was gone. No slammed door. No broken words. Just silence and rain. I stood there in the middle of the kitchen, the ghost of her perfume still clinging to the air. Something about her calm, it didn't sit right. This wasn't guilt. This wasn't heartbreak. It was strategy. She wasn't blindsided. She was ahead. For the first time, I realized the woman I married might not just be hiding infidelity. She could be hiding something far worse. If this part resonates, give the video a thumbs up. The courtroom smelled like old wood and nerves. I sat alone at the plaintiff's table, file folder in front of me, pen perfectly aligned with the yellow legal pad I hadn't touched. My lawyer, Margaret Howell, sat beside me, flipping quietly through our documentation. She was composed, steel-spined, but even she kept glancing toward the doors. Because Natalie was late. Not by much, maybe 3 minutes past the hour, but the courtroom was already filled with that electric anticipation, like the seconds before a lightning strike. And then the doors opened. She entered in slow, measured steps. Cream-colored dress, flat shoes, no jewelry. Her hair was pulled into a low ponytail, and she walked just behind a man in a sharp gray suit, her attorney. From the look of him, tight jaw, silk tie, tablet already in hand. He wasn't here for peace. Natalie looked fragile. That's the word they would use. The one the judge would remember. Not guilty, not defensive, just fragile. She sat down across from me without meeting my eyes. And then the games began. Your Honor, her lawyer said, rising with a slight bow of the head, Mrs. Hallberg has suffered immensely over the last several months. This case is not about infidelity or wild accusations. It's about emotional cruelty, withdrawal, abandonment, conduct that no spouse deserves. I leaned forward, barely able to breathe. Margaret placed a hand on my forearm. She is currently carrying a child, he continued. And despite this, Mr. Hallberg made the choice to humiliate her publicly. On his birthday, no less, in front of friends and colleagues. He then vacated the marital home and refused to engage in meaningful reconciliation. That behavior amounts to marital misconduct under Virginia Code. The judge nodded slightly, making notes. Margaret stood. Your Honor, the basis of our case is that Mr. Hallberg had reason to believe the child is not biologically his. This was not abandonment. It was a measured response to serious doubts in the integrity of the relationship. Natalie dabbed her eyes with a tissue. A tissue. I hadn't seen her cry in years. Not when her mother passed. Not when we lost that early pregnancy 6 years ago. But here she was, breaking down on cue. Just enough to blur the edge of her voice. Just enough to make her seem overwhelmed by her own virtue. She's playing them, I whispered. I know, Margaret said softly. Let me do the talking. Her lawyer continued. We are requesting full use of the marital home until the child is born, spousal support through the end of pregnancy and 6 months postpartum, and control of shared assets, given the emotional toll David has imposed. I stood up. I didn't mean to. I just couldn't stay seated. Your Honor, I said, trying to stay even, I'm not abandoning anyone. I asked her, to her face, whether she'd been with someone else. She laughed. She walked away. I'm not trying to punish her. I just want the truth. I don't believe the child is mine. And that matters. The judge looked over her glasses at me. Do you have proof of infidelity, Mr. Hallberg? I hesitated. No, just instinct. Natalie's lawyer pounced. Exactly. No paternity test. No photos. No admissions. Just a hunch. And a hunch shouldn't leave a pregnant woman homeless. Natalie let out a soft sob. The courtroom fell still. The judge glanced toward her, then back at me. Until we have something more substantial, Mr. Hallberg, your instincts are not evidence. At this time, temporary support will be granted. Full use of the marital home awarded to Mrs. Hallberg until further hearing. My hands clenched beneath the table. The sound of the gavel hitting the bench was somehow louder than it should have been. Case adjourned. Natalie stood slowly, her hand resting briefly on her stomach, the tissue still clutched in the other. As she walked past me with her lawyer, she didn't say a word. But for just a second, her eyes met mine, and what I saw wasn't grief. It was calculation. I didn't sit down when we got back to the office. I paced, slow at first, then faster. My shoes made sharp clicks across the hardwood floor, echoing between the bookshelves and the heavy framed law degrees lining the wall. She cried on cue, Margaret. I snapped. She pulled a tissue out like she rehearsed it. And that judge? She fell for it. Margaret Howell sat at her desk, calm as always. She unbuttoned her blazer and crossed her legs. Judges aren't machines, David. They respond to what's in front of them. And what was in front of her today was a pregnant woman claiming emotional trauma. I turned sharply. You think I caused this? I think, she said slowly. You underestimated your wife's ability to perform under pressure. She's not just performing. She's rewriting the whole story, I said, pointing toward the door like the courtroom was still down the hall. I'm the guy who walked away from the marriage, apparently. The guy who couldn't handle the miracle of life. That's what they see. Margaret raised an eyebrow. You did walk away. I stopped pacing. You know why. She nodded. But they don't. And without proof, the court won't care. I ran a hand through my hair. So what then? I just sit here and wait for her to take everything? Margaret was quiet for a moment, then pushed her chair back and stood. There's one option, she said, her voice a little more careful now. I looked at her. What kind of option? A polygraph. I frowned. You think she'll agree to that? She won't have to, Margaret said. We can motion for it. Present it as a character integrity check. Voluntary, but influential. If she refuses, it plants a seed. If she agrees and fails, it blows this open. I stared at her, the idea sinking in. She won't pass it. No, Margaret said, walking toward her filing cabinet. But if you're right, and you really believe that child isn't yours, this is the only path that tips the scale. I sat down for the first time in an hour. All the fight in me had turned to quiet resolve. This is my last card, I said. Margaret pulled a folder and set it on her desk. Then let's play it right. She didn't meet my eyes when I walked into the courtroom. Natalie sat at the defense table, hands folded, lips tight. Her hair was tied back the same way it had been at our wedding, and I almost let myself remember who she used to be, before the performances, before the hashtags and tissues and pity. But the moment I sat down across from her, I saw it. She was afraid. She didn't show it like most people. No shaking, no panic. But I'd lived beside that face for 10 years. And beneath the stillness, I recognized what she was doing, bracing for impact. Margaret leaned toward me and whispered, "Stay calm. Let the truth do the shouting." The judge entered. Formalities passed in a blur. Then Margaret stood. Your Honor, pursuant to an agreement signed by both parties last Thursday, we are submitting the results of a voluntary polygraph examination conducted by an independent examiner licensed in the Commonwealth of Virginia. Natalie stiffened. Her attorney turned, muttering something in a low, clipped tone. Objection, he said, rising. We object to the relevance and admissibility of polygraph results. As the court knows, these tests are often excluded due to questions of scientific reliability. The judge raised a hand. Let me be clear. Was this polygraph voluntarily signed and consented to by both parties? Natalie's lawyer hesitated. Then, yes, Your Honor. But again, we caution the court. I will weigh its significance accordingly. Proceed. Margaret held up the file like a dagger. 2 questions were submitted and reviewed. She flipped open the folder and read the first one slowly, letting every word hang in the air. Have you had intimate relations with someone other than your husband during the course of your marriage? Natalie didn't blink. Response, yes. Result, determined to be truthful. A sharp gasp came from behind us. Someone's pen hit the floor. My stomach stayed still. I had already made peace with that truth. But it was the second question that made the silence hurt. Margaret paused just enough to let the weight of it build. Is your husband, David Hallberg, the biological father of your unborn child? She didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. Response, no. Result, determined to be truthful. The courtroom didn't explode. It collapsed. One of the women in the gallery gasped like she'd been slapped. A man behind me muttered, God, under his breath. Even Natalie's lawyer looked stunned. Natalie? She stared down at her lap, fingers digging into her own palm. No tears. No denial. Just exposed. The judge leaned forward slowly. Mrs. Hallberg, do you dispute the results of this examination? Natalie's voice was barely a whisper. No, Your Honor. I sat motionless. My hands were still, for the first time in weeks. The judge folded her hands. Based on this evidence, and the misleading testimony previously provided by the defendant, I am reversing the preliminary ruling. She turned to me. Mr. Hallberg, you are no longer responsible for financial support connected to this pregnancy. Your name will not appear on any birth record unless future paternity testing proves otherwise. You are released from all housing and alimony obligations previously ordered. She looked back at Natalie. As for Mrs. Hallberg, this court finds that false representation and strategic omission of truth have undermined prior claims of emotional cruelty. Spousal support is denied. Marital assets shall be split evenly. There was a pause. Then the gavel. Next hearing will be scheduled within the next 30 days. This session is adjourned. Everyone stood. Natalie remained seated, like her legs had forgotten how to work. Her lawyer tried to whisper something to her again, but she shook her head and brushed him off. I turned to Margaret. That's it. She nodded. That's it. You're no longer the villain. I took a breath, and this time, I didn't feel like I had to fight for air. I turned toward Natalie one last time. She finally looked up, eyes glassy, lips trembling. But I didn't offer pity, just silence. She'd made her choice. And now, the truth had caught up. I stood just outside the courthouse steps, hands in my coat pockets, watching the wind toss leaves down the sidewalk like forgotten pages. The weight I'd carried for weeks had shifted, not vanished, but lifted just enough to breathe without grinding my teeth. Margaret had gone back inside to file paperwork. Reporters and onlookers drifted away. It felt like the moment after a storm, clean but eerily still. That's when I heard her. David. I turned. Natalie stood under the awning, coat wrapped around her like armor. Her makeup was smudged, but not from drama. This time, it looked real. Her eyes were red-rimmed, and her voice shook. Can I say something? I didn't move. Go ahead. She stepped closer, slowly. No tricks. No smirk. Just her. I panicked, she said. I didn't know how to tell you. About any of it. It wasn't supposed to go this far. I nodded slowly. But it did. She nodded too, swallowing hard. I didn't want to lose you. I didn't plan to lie. It just spiraled. And then the pregnancy. I didn't even know for sure, at first. I thought maybe if we got through it together, you'd come back. You thought I'd stay if I believed the child was mine. She winced. I hoped. I exhaled. You remember that trip we took to Asheville? The little vineyard? She blinked at the sudden shift. Yeah. We spent an afternoon talking about what kind of parents we'd be, how we'd raise a kid, what kind of life we wanted to build. I wanted that. I know. I looked at her, steady. But I wanted it with you. Not with someone pretending to be you. Tears welled in her eyes, but she didn't let them fall. You think I'm a monster, she whispered. No, I said. I think you got scared. And then you got good at lying. She looked away, jaw tight, then nodded once. I'm sorry. I paused for a moment, letting the silence stretch between us. I believe you, I said. But it doesn't change anything. She looked like she might speak again. But she didn't. She turned. And for the first time since this all began, she walked away without performance, without an audience, without looking back. Just a woman finally out of excuses. 6 months later, I woke up to birdsong and the sound of rain tapping gently on a tin roof. Not sirens. Not traffic. Not the ping of phone notifications or the muffled sound of arguments through shared walls. Just sheep, early clouds, and the soft rhythm of the South Island. I stepped out onto the porch with a mug of coffee. Instant, terrible, perfect, and watched the fog roll over the hills like a living thing. The land was green, but not loud about it. Just quietly alive. This wasn't a vacation. This was home. After the court finalized the split, I sold the house. Natalie had already moved in with someone else, someone I didn't care to learn the name of. She signed the paperwork quickly, without drama. I took half of everything we built, boxed what little I still cared to own, and booked a one-way ticket. New Zealand had always been a fantasy. Back in college, Marcus and I used to joke that if we ever lost everything, we'd herd sheep on a hillside somewhere and make wine no one bought. It was supposed to be a punchline. Now it was a life. I worked the land with 2 local farmers who didn't ask questions. Mornings were for clearing fences and chasing stubborn livestock. Afternoons were spent in the cellar, learning the science of fermentation, soil, and patience. And for the first time in years, I slept without clenching my jaw. One afternoon, a letter arrived. Not an email. Not a text. A letter, the envelope smudged, addressed in Marcus's messy print. Inside was one line. You didn't fold. Proud of you, brother. Underneath, a Polaroid of him holding a beer in our old dorm room, dated 2009. I laughed so hard I nearly dropped it in the vineyard soil. I pinned it on the wall above the kitchen sink. Sometimes at night, when the wind cuts over the valley and the moon hangs heavy over the ridge, I sit on the back porch and think about everything I lost. Then I think about everything I didn't. I didn't lose my instinct. I didn't lose my spine. And I didn't lose the part of me that still believes in truth, even when it hides behind lies, tissues, and soft voices meant to deceive. That part, it survived, maybe even grew stronger. I once thought justice came like a gift, clean, noble, undeniable. But now I know better. Justice isn't handed to you. You claw it out of the dark. You drag it forward, one step at a time. Through humiliation, through silence, through courtrooms and betrayals and nights spent wondering if you're the only one who sees the cracks. And when it finally shows its face, you don't celebrate. You just breathe and build something better in the space where the lie used to live. That was the end of my story. Qley stood by Natalie, threw a glass of water in my face, and swore I was the villain because she believed her best friend without question. But now I can't stop wondering, did she do the right thing, or was she just too loyal to see the truth? Tell me what you think in the comments. And if my story made you feel something, hit like, and don't forget to subscribe.